Hey you guys, the Doc is Hope here and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a sew along. The pattern that I'm working on is McCall's 7740. I have gone over this in one of my previous videos, this pattern and fabric that I got, which is this really pretty polyester light blue floral pattern that I think is just perfect for spring. And my lining, which is also just a white polyester. So I have all my pattern pieces cut out and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So if you guys like this video, definitely give me a thumbs up down below. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that so we can continue to hang out together. All right, so here we go. So when I'm sewing, I always like to keep my pattern packet or package kind of like right here, just so that I can see what it is that I'm making and exactly how it's supposed to look, so that as I'm going through the process, I make sure that I'm going in the right direction. All right, so I am sewing view C of this dress, which is the open back version with the tie at the top. So let me go ahead and grab my pieces. I have piece number 7 cut out, which is piece number 7, which is my bodice back. I have piece number 6, which is my bodice front cut out. I have my tie, which is piece number 8 cut out. Also have piece number 5 cut out, which is my skirt back. And then I have piece number 4 cut out, which is my skirt front on fold. All right, so I'm gonna set my skirt pieces aside for now. We'll get to those later. I'm also gonna set my tie aside. So step 1, I'm going to stitch the bodice front and bodice back sections together at the shoulder and overarm edges. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that laid out. I think I'm gonna put my front down first, since it's just one piece. That way I can make sure that I layer my back on evenly or equally on both sides. I always leave a pin. I don't know if y'all can see that. A pin right here on the right side to make sure that I have my right side facing the right way. Someone previously said that they use like a thread tie, which that could be, also very helpful. If you don't want to puncture your fabric with a pin, just put a little thread tie through it. And it might stay better too, but I haven't had any issues with the pin method so far. So again, here's my back. I've got the pin on the right side. So I'm just gonna go ahead and line those up together. And then I'm going to pin my shoulders. We're just going to be sewing the shoulders. And then once we add in our lining, we'll sew the sides. So let me go ahead and get my iron turned on to polyester mode. All right. Let me grab my pins. I'm using these super fine glass head pins because my fabric is so thin. I don't want to mess anything up. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that together. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the sewing machine. I'm gonna sew 5/8 inch seam allowance coming from the outside in on both sides, and I'll be back. All right, you guys. So I have my shoulders sewn together of my front and back bodice. Let's see, next step, we're gonna do a little work on our tie. So I'm just gonna kind of fold that, put it off to the side and grab my tie, which again is piece number 8. So let me get these pins out. Got my pins out. So now I'm going to go ahead and with right sides together. So again, I have my pin on right side so that I know. So I'm going to fold right sides together along the fold line, which is literally right in the middle, down the middle, the long way. And I'm going to leave open the end with my symbols, the little circles that were on the pattern. So now that I know I have my right side facing up, I'm just going to go ahead and fold and pin that. Using 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to leave open the squared off edges. I'm going to sew the diagonals. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. All right, so I've got my ties sewn with my one side left open. I'm going to go ahead and press this seam just to set those. I'm going to trim off some of that excess seam allowance so that when I turn these out, they're not like extremely bulky. And then I'm also going to iron or press the hem of my bodice. And then I'm going to turn these inside out so that the right side is facing out. All right, so now that that's done, I'm going to turn these right side out, which honestly, you guys, this part is my least favorite part of ties and, you know, belts and things of that nature because it's so small. I need to buy one of those Turner things, but I haven't bought one yet, so bear with me. So I have my second tie turned out. Now I'm going to go ahead and press these. And I'm going to baste the raw edges. And then I'll be right back. So I've got my raw edges basted on my ties. Next thing we're going to do is pin the ties to the bodice back opening edges matching upper symbols. So now let me grab my bodice. And of course the back is the open part. So I'm gonna go ahead and I can remove my pins, my right side pins. Since I've already sewn, I already know which side is right and which side is wrong side. So I'm gonna take those out so they don't get in my way. I think I've got them all. I am loving this fabric, y'all. This polyester is everything. Okay, so we're actually going to be pinning it to the inside or the wrong side of the bodice back. That's gonna be like that. And then this be like this. Trying to replicate the picture as much as possible. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin that into place. Right where it matches up with my notching. And it actually ends up being pretty flush with the ends, the raw ends of the bodice and the tie end up being pretty much even, so that's good. All right, so now I'm going to baste that into place. Let me show you what that looks like up close. So I've got it pinned here, my notches lined up, and it's pretty much raw, flush with the raw edges of the back bodice. So I'm gonna go ahead and baste that, and then I'll be right back. All right, so I finished my basting. Now I can remove my pins since that's already being held into place with my basting stitch. Let's see, where's all this coming from? Okay. Yep, so let me go ahead and remove my pins. And that is secured for now. All right, moving on. And again, I'm sewing view C, so I'm gonna skip that next step and go right on to C. Stitch bodice lining and bodice back lining sections together at shoulder and overarm edges. So let me grab my lining. I'm gonna set this aside for now. I love, with your lining that it's basically the same steps that you just did for your bodice. So let me get my pins taken out of here. So again, I'm going to use my pin to tell me that this is the right side of my lining. And same here, since these are cut together for my back, I'm going to open them up and just put a little pin right there so that I remember this is the right side of my back. All right, so now it's time to line these babies up. So that one goes there. And that one, right side, goes there. All right. So, you see how I have that lined up now? I'm gonna go ahead and pin my shoulders and we'll get going on this lining. All right, so now that I've got my shoulders pinned, I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. I am going to stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance from the outside in on both sides, and then I'll be back. All right, guys, so I have sewn my shoulders together, 5/8 inch seam allowance. Now let's see. I'm going to again press that seam and then I'll be right back. So again, now that I have a seam I can take out the pins that I use to mark my right sides because I know that the wrong side is the seam side. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove those pins. Let's see, I think there should be one more. Oh no, because that was one piece. All right, so next step, guys, we are going to, with right sides together, pin the bodice lining to the bodice, matching seams. So, right sides together. And I love to just go by the picture in the pattern because, you know, it just helps you to make sure you're lining everything up correctly. I'm just grabbing my bodice and I'm just literally gonna lay it right sides facing on top of that. And let's see, stitch neck and back opening edges. So this whole U-shaped area here in the middle is gonna get stitched. So let me go ahead and start pinning that. Matching all my, first I'm gonna start with my seams because to me that's most important, to make sure that your seams are matching. One point that I wanna make about this, these directions, keep in mind that your ties are, they have to be on the right side, the outside of the fabric. And so before you sew this U-shaped part here, make sure that you take your ties and tuck them or pull them to the other side, to the right side. Sandwich them in between your lining and your fashion fabric before you sew that. That way, when you actually turn this inside out, before you do your understitching, let me get it turned out so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Well, almost. Come on. Come on. There we go. All right, so that way, you see how, okay, that way you make sure that your ties are going to be on the outside or the right side of your blouse. Lining, fabric, fashion fabric. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the sewing machine, 5/8 of an inch stitch, hem seam allowance. And then when I finish that, I'll be back. All right, you guys, not so fast. I did read on and they want me to also stitch the lower edges of the sleeves, which if this is our V that we just pinned, they want this part, the side sleeve area, stitched from top to bottom, 5/8 inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin that too before I go to my sewing machine. now I have it all pinned. I'm gonna sew it 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'll be back. That's better, more light. Okay, so I went ahead and stitched that seam and the seam of the lower sleeve. I'm gonna go ahead and press that, and then I'll come back. Okay, so now that I've gotten that seam nice and pressed, I am going to trim off some of this seam allowance, and then I'm going to understitch my lining. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this so that it's easy for me to kind of get to it. And a lot of times when I'm sewing with woven fabrics, I like to use my pinking shears when I'm trimming, just to finish off the edge so that everything doesn't unravel as easily. It takes a little bit more time, but I like the finish of it, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So see how cute that is with the pinking? It's nice and ruffled. I just like it, and it stops it from unraveling. So 2 purposes. All right, so now I'm going to understitch my lining. All right, guys. So I just finished understitching my lining. Now we are going to turn the lining to the inside and press, and it's just gonna kind of roll under really nicely. So I'll do that, and then I'll be back. All right, so I went ahead and put my bodice on the mannequin just so that we can see where we are so far. Here's the front of our bodice. Again, the neckline is nice and smooth due to that understitching. And then when I turn her around, you see we have our nice back forming here with our tie at the top. So she's looking cute, y'all. She's looking real cute. All right, you guys. Well, that is it for this part of the sew along for this beautiful spring summer dress using McCall's M7740. Make sure you join me again next week when I put the skirt together with the lining and then join the skirt to the bodice and finish up this dress. All right, you guys. Well, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your week. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up down below. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that so we can continue to hang out together. You can catch these sew along videos as well as pattern reviews, pattern hauls, and just lots of fun stuff. All right, you guys. Well, until next time, I will see you later.